Hey everybody, it's Savage Lands News coming in this week after a little bit of a break. I got sick during my pro quests. Unfortunately, my voice was hit pretty hard. It's been pretty lame in general. But I think I can make it through this video. My voice might crack a couple times, but whatever, you know. But I played in 4 pro quests. I managed to win 2 of them. I hit 2nd place in the 3rd, and my final pro quest, I immediately got paired up against one of my friends who didn't have a PTI. So I ended up conceding to him in the top 8 game to give him a shot to kind of close that tournament out and get his PTI so he can go with me out to Baltimore, right? But Rhinar was the deck I played on all 4 events. I played a gambit of heroes, right? Aggro, control, mid-range, and, you know, I had a very, very positive win rate into aggro decks in general and absolutely crushed the old hymns. Icelander continues to be my kryptonite, but let's dive into some of the changes that have happened over the last couple of weeks, and we can talk about Rhinar's place in the future. And at the end of this video, I'll go over my deck list one more time. I have all 4 versions that I brought. I'll put them down in the chat below. And then I'm going to highlight a couple of the major important plays that worked out with this deck. You know, some points that you should really consider while playing it. And then over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be commentating over all of the games I was recorded in to give you my thought process during each one of those games and how I approach those heroes and what I'm looking to do. So really sorry I didn't get these videos out before the final week. I really wanted to give you guys this video before the last week of ProQuest to give you a better shot at taking Rhinar into those finals, but it just didn't work out. All right, so let's dive into the changes real quick. See you there. All right, first up on the changes is the Pro Tour invites have been published. All right, looks like we all know now who's going to be at the Pro Tour or who's at least invited to it. Hopefully your name is on this list, and hopefully even if it's not, I'll go ahead and see you at Baltimore. I'll be there. I'm hoping to meet a lot of you guys in person. I'll be running around, going to the artist stations, playing in the games, you know, hopefully making it to day 2, but if not, I'll be at the calling and the battle hardened. But yeah, another exciting thing is that they ran ELO immediately for one of the first times in a while, right? So we now have an updated ELO post ProQuest season for the PT, right? And I cracked top 50, baby. Oh, this is the wrong list, but yeah, I managed to squeak in. It looks like a couple people lost a couple points. So yeah, I'm now a top 50 player until the calling results are in, and then I drop all the way back down, but that's okay. All right, and even more importantly, we have the banned and suspended announcement, right? This has got a lot of interesting repercussions on the meta, if you ask me. So number 1, Winter's Wail's banned. You know, the reason they gave for this is because it's a one-handed weapon that does way too much. It has way too much power. It's 3 resource, 4 damage, frostbite. So it's basically a 1 for 5, a 1 card for 5 value, and that is, you know, basically equivalent to Rhinar's Romping Club with its discard effect active, right? And it's 1 point off of a Nothos. So it's like, I can see why they did this. It is just, you know, if Oldhim ever had a bad turn, it just defaulted to block 9, swing Winter's Wail. And that just made Oldhim so consistent, right? The floor of Oldhim is pretty good. Like, the floor is literally 5-point swing off 1 card, block 9. That's kind of crazy. That's like a 14-point swing on your worst turn. So I understand that. You know, as far as Rhinar's concerned, this is like just going to seal the deal for us being his counter hero, right? The only thing I really cared about was his disruption turns. You know, stuff like Endless Winter and then, you know, or E-Strike Winter's Wail, right? Like, it's going to seal the deal. I don't really think it's going to impact Oldhim too much, though, because the aggro version was already kind of throwing their hand at you. They weren't defaulting to fatigue Winter's Wail like the other one, you know, like the old list kind of were. So I don't really think this is going to impact him too much, to be honest. Like, maybe it'll knock off a couple percentage points on his consistency, but other than that, I don't really think it's like a big deal. But I might be wrong. But I don't think it's a big deal. Hypothermia and Amulet of Ice. This is big. Hypothermia, in my opinion, was a card that Icelander should have never had. Like maybe if it cost a lot, or maybe if it wasn't blue, sure. Like if they could play it like normal, like every other hero who has to play it, it makes sense. But just to have something that you put in your arsenal that just shuts off an entire hero's ability to have any chance into you is kind of dumb, right? It has no interaction. Like Blizzard, at least you can pay for it to make it go away, or other cards you can pay for it to stop. Hypothermia just came out, ended your turn. The amount of times I like blood rushed and just had to guess if they had happened to have found a hypothermia last turn is like, it's just frustrating. So I'm happy with the hypothermia change. The Amulet of Ice change, I know a lot of Icelanders are really kind of upset about this change. I mean, as somebody who doesn't really enjoy playing in the Icelander, I'm not upset about it. But it is kind of, Amulet of Ice is just a crazy card in general, right? Like it's a 0 cost, go again, blue. So it creates a frostbite. It has like no there's nothing really punishing about running it except for the non-block. But like Icelander just has so much value kind of baked into her kit that like that non-block typically didn't do much. So, one of the games I lost, my opponent managed to get 3 Amulet of Ices out, and just towards the end of the game, just every turn, they just dissected my hand with Insidious Chill and Amulet of Ice combos, and I really just like had to look at them as my turns just disintegrated before my eyes. So I kind of understand why they did this. It's 0, go again, plays from Arsenal too well, has a permanent effect that almost no class can deal with, and then just spikes you at the end of the game, no matter if you're an aggro deck or a fatigue deck. And I think that's kind of like the main thing LSS pointed out here, is that it was good into both strategies, and it was so good that it won games kind of by itself, right? Like Amulet of Ice is often a reason an Oldhim or a Fi loses their matchup. So we'll see. I think a lot of Icelanders are terrified or really upset about this change, but I think that you can put in a lot of other cards that kind of fill the same gap, like the pay or discard card or the pay or dominate card kind of have a similar effect. But, I guess we'll see over time how bad Icelander's impacted, right? It could be so detrimental she falls all the way down to like tier 1.52, or, they'll adapt like most decks do and she'll be still oppressive, right? We'll see. And Belittle. Okay, this one makes me so excited. Belittle is just like kind of a generic that is too good. And I think a lot of the old school generics are like this, It's a 1 cost 3 go again attack or 2 go again attack that pays for itself negatively, right? You gain resources for playing it with Minnowism, blue. Or it's a 1 for 6 go again with the red that certain decks can superly take advantage of, like mostly Rune Blades, right? So it added so much consistency into Fi. Like, just this 1 or 2 Minnowisms just constantly coming out of the deck. They're playing it. They're gaining their whole turn back. They can overextend with 1 cost cards because they just have a perfect blue curve no matter what they draw. It was just incredibly frustrating to play against, where I think hitting this card is very good. And you saw like what LSS is kind of claiming here, where Viserai was running it, Briar was sometimes running it, Fi was running it. You started seeing all of these aggro decks just start shoving Belittle in because of the consistency curve that it generated, that it was kind of like obnoxious. I played against a Fi over the weekend that was undefeated, that was running full reds, full yellow Minnowism or Belittles. I saw him draw Minnowism 6+ times. And every single time, cheating the resource curve, getting the sword attack, getting an extra Phoenix Flame for free, doing all of this kind of stuff, that it was just like super frustrating. So all in all, these bans are incredibly disruptive to the meta. A lot of people are pegging that Rhinar is going to fall from grace with this because you're going to see Briar go up, you might see Viserai go up. But I'm not so sure. I was already kind of winning my Fi matchups. I, again, still have barely dropped any games in a tournament setting since U.S. Nationals. And if this knocks their consistency down a couple pegs, then I'm in a good spot as Rhinar player. And even if Briar becomes the monster, she's so close to living legend that that is going to be very short-lived. And once Briar and her weapon are gone, I'm not really that afraid of Viscerai for a while. So we'll see. All in all, I actually personally believe this is good for Rhinar. I do. Even if it's just we have to deal with a short window of Briar being everywhere, I think it's really good for us. It knocks the consistency down of some of these aggro decks. It knocks the ability just to turn off our Blood Rush from Icelander, and it improves our Oldhim matchup. So all in all, pretty good. So let's go ahead and dive into the deck list real fast. I'll go over all of the cards, and then after that, we'll go over those key plays that you guys should keep your eyes out when you're running this list. See you there. Okay, so here is the general list that I took into each one of these events. It changed from iteration to iteration. I was testing some things, especially towards the end, trying out new cards and messing with the ratios a little bit, but I'm pretty sure this is close to where I will end up being in the future. Obviously, we'll have to see what the new meta brings us and if we need any more tech cards or if some of the heroes fall out of favor, right? But for now, this is kind of where I'm sitting on what I would say is like my ideal Rhinar list, right? Equipment is the same as always. Crown of Providence, Fendal's Gamblers, Mandibles Gloves, Null Runes, Scab Skins, Skull Horn. Nothing has changed, and Heart and Crossstrap. Heart and Crossstrap comes in against aggro matchups, but other than that, you know, kind of standard claws Rhinar list right now. There's nothing special here, you know. In the list, the core 38 cards basically always remain the same. At some point, I did take out like one Savage Feast and put in a Savage Beatdown, mostly for Icelander I was testing. I took out a one Pack Call, put a Sand Sketch Plan in, mostly for that Savage Beatdown. But other than that, nothing really changed. It's just like my core, what I think I need as far as like the fuel to power my concept. You know, 17 blues, 15 yellows, and then these 6 reds that are unique, right? Savage Feast is probably the highest ceiling of a play we can do outside of a Blood Rush Bellows turn on average. Swing Big is our best red. There's no reason it would ever come out. Our yellows are there to fuel our Blood Rushes and keep our 6 density alive. Obviously, Blood Rush Bellows is in there. Our blues are disposable, 0-cost blues that I can play to get out of my hand during a Blood Rush turn. Also to seal out games with Intimidates, because most of the time you're pitching your blues to the bottom. So your blues also have to do something in the late game. And in Rhinar's case, they Intimidate, okay? Reckless Swing closes out games. And Pack Hunt is just a blue attack that you can pitch that has Intimidate on it. There's a theme that when you play in the second cycle with like a couple of barraging beatdowns can close out a game, right? So this list, these 38 cards never really change. And then we get into like basically every one of these spots that's a tech card. These cards are built for, or put in the list for certain matchups, right? Alpha Rampage is just there to keep 6 density up. It's a good way to close a game against slower decks. It's a good way to open a game. Honestly, it's kind of almost always in my main board at this point in time, except for very few matchups, but it is a very good card. I used to be not really hot on it. Super good, man. The amount of games I won with Alpha Rampage is nuts, okay? Red Barraging is really, really good, okay? Against aggro decks, it's a 0-4, which is basically one of our best rates. And against decks that block, it is a way to penetrate defenses in the late game. Also, it's a good way to buy time. If you just do Red Barraging Claw or Red Barraging 6 attack, that's 10. 10 or 7. A lot of decks are going to block that. You're just kind of saying like, hey, give me another turn, please. Like, give me 2 cards. And against Fi, you're saying take 7 for 2, which is good. You know, it's like very close to rate with an Intimidate too, right? Just a good card. Command Conquer and Erase Face, 2 for 6s that have on hits. Like they're the only 2 on hits we have. They're really, really, really good on hits. You know, disrupting an arsenal against Briar and Fi can be game winning when you hit a Channel Mount Heroic or an Art of War, and you know you hit them when they block. Erase Face against Dash just buys you a whole turn and 2 cards. Against Viscerai, it turns off Go again, and they have to block it. They're just really, really good. Pack Hunt falls into that territory. 2 for 6 with an Intimidate. The amount of times that, you know, I seal the game out just by double intimidating with like a 4 at the end game where it's like Smash Instinct into Pack Hunt. You know, They can only block 6 of the 12, right? You're just going to instantly leak damage through. Pack Hunt is really good. Oasis, Respite, Fate Foreseen, Sink Below. That all you got, right? These are all just D-reacts in different ways. They all do slightly different things. Oasis Respite is good against Dominate decks, Guardians, so Dory, and Wizards, obviously. Really, really, really good into Wizards. Fate Foreseen and Sink Below are good into Briar, Viscerai, Bravo, Phi. That all you got's are really only good into Rune Blades and Phi, but Phi is so prevalent that he demands that many slots. Just how we hold tempo in a game, right? We're preserving life to Blood Rush with this version of the build, so you just need to preserve as much life as possible and dig for cards, because you want to see Blood Rush as fast as possible. Sigil and Tome have now become kind of all-stars to me. My game plan has kind of slowly been evolving around healing. It's so much so that I'm actually looking, I have a concept where I heal even more. Some of the games I'll put on the channel later that were recorded that I played, like, I'm winning by the amount I've healed, right? So there was like a 5 game, I won by 9, I had healed 9 that game. Some of the Briar games, right, I win by 4, I healed 11. So it's like, if it wasn't for the fact that those healing cards existed, I would have lost. So, I'll lay out some plays later with these cards, but they're really good, especially with like the way that we play with 2 cards. Sometimes you're just stuck with a 3rd card in hand. Sigil is just the immediate way to get it out and cycle your arsenal instantly, right? You can put a Sigil in arsenal, use it for like bluffing or whatever, and then when you ever end up with an extra card in your hand, you can just Sigil it out and put it in your arsenal. It's really good. Arc Smash is great into dash. That's really it. Energy Potion, I was running into Icelander and Oldhim, just amazing for late game survival and setup. And Hardened Crosstrap, I've been running into aggro decks. So, with that, let me lay out a couple plays with these cards from some of the games I participated in, and I'll talk you through them. Alright, so here's an example of Sigil of Solace, right? So I have 2 cards in my hand here. You can see this is at the FAB Foundry Pro Quest. This is in the finals against the Briar. I'll be commentating over this entire game at some point soon. I'm going to be posting all of the times I was on camera and any of my events over the next couple, week or so, and commentating over it. But right here, I know for a fact that there's a Channel Mount Heroic in this Briar's arsenal, right? I have a card in pocket in my arsenal. It happens to be a Sigil of Solace. I put it there as a way, one thing I like to do against Rune Blades in particular is leave one in pocket, because they like to overextend when they know that they've got the kill. So sometimes a Sigil of Solace is all it takes for them to take a bunch of damage, overextend, I can heal my way through it, and then now they're in this weird blocking situation, and I can actually sometimes take the game back and stall long enough for like a Reckless Swing when that happens. So I have a Sigil in Arsenal, I have a Blood Rush in hand, and I have another Sigil in my hand, right? So here's what I'm talking about emptying your arsenal. So right here, I gain 6 health, which is basically the equivalent of doing 6 damage. I cleared my arsenal, even though I had no card to play, and I put a Blood Rush Bellows in the pocket, right? And, shocker, I end up winning with that Blood Rush Bellows, right? It pulls me all of the tempo. So something like that, Sigil, it's just incredible, right? I was able to immediately clear my arsenal, put a high priority target in arsenal, gain tempo, gain health. I can take one more big turn of damage, and really I pulled ahead with this play even before, I sealed the game, right? I really, really pulled ahead with that 6 health. Okay, so this time we're going to be talking about Hardened Crosstrap. Same game. I'm lazy to go look for another one. It's turn 1. I ended up Reckless Swinging them, doing 2 damage on their first turn. I draw up here with a Blood Rush Bellows. Normally, without having something in my arsenal, I'd be pretty afraid to run this Blood Rush, like it might not do perfect damage. So I discard a 6. Intimidate's going on the stack. Blood Rush is active. I have 2 floating, best case scenario for a Blood Rush on average, but nothing in arsenal. Right, so I draw my cards, and you'll see immediately I wouldn't be able to play a perfect Blood Rush if I didn't have this Crosstrap, right? So I'm going to come in for 5. They're going to block, whatever, we'll speed it up, blah, 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 blah. And then right here, I pop my Crosstrap. I play Savage Feast for a discounted fee. Do another Intimidate on turn 2. It's coming in for 8. So this is 18 damage Blood Rush. They're going to eat this, and I get to draw a card and put it in my arsenal, right? And this is exactly what Heart and Crosstrap is for, right? If it wasn't for Heart and Crosstrap, I would have had to wait a little bit longer to play that Blood Rush. I wouldn't, well, if I wanted to be successful, or I would have just done 13 damage here. So that's what Crosstrap is for. In aggro matchups, it lets you fire Blood Rush with no preparation, and even if you draw all reds, right? Let's look at another example. All right, so here's another example of Heart and Crosstrap and why it's so powerful. In the dash matchup, it does something really incredible, right? It allows us to block with our entire hand and play in Race Face or Command and Conquer. Why this is important is in the dash matchup, we want to flex between fatigue and aggression, right? We don't want to just fatigue them, because then we're going to, if we commit really hard to doing that, then they would give them all the time in the world to set up maximum velocities and all of these items and all this kind of stuff, right? What we really want to be doing is hitting them with cards while fatiguing. Okay, it's kind of, I'll go over a whole dash video after this. But this play right here just immediately bought me a whole turn of life. And typically in the more boost aggression matchups, it'll buy me 2 cards. And if you think about it, every time I get 2 cards out of the deck, that is 2 less boosts they can do. And that actually is a lot, all right? Let's take a look at another interesting card. Okay, let's take a look at Savage Feast. This is a really, really, really powerful card. And it's one of the only ways that I have aggression in this deck outside of Blood Rush Bellows. So here you're going to see we're doing the hybrid fatigue damage plan. They spent a turn to set up here, probably after an Erase Facer or Command and Conquer, so they blocked and they didn't do very much damage. So what I'm doing now is I'm just doing a raw Intimidate to make blocking a little bit harder to deal with. Savage Feast, gain that action point, another Intimidate. So we know, right, 2 Intimidates on the stack, that they're going to be losing health here because we're going to be doing too much damage. So then we're going to draw a card off Savage Feast, right? We have 2 floating, and I have a 2-cost attack in my arsenal. It could be a 3-cost attack because no matter what color you draw off the top, it's going to fire. Another interesting thing is if you draw a yellow, you could actually Savage Feast, Claw, 2-cost from arsenal. So you're going to see how devastating this is. Like, it's a lot of damage. Let's just speed through, you know. So they end up taking it, and then boom, swing big from pocket. It's a lot of damage, right? That's just basically is the highest amount of damage I could possibly do outside of a Blood Rush. And I got an arsenal, right? That's a lot. That's a lot of value. All right. Savage Feast is really, really strong in the right circumstances. And in the worst case, when it misses, you know, when you don't get that 4 or 6, you know, it replaces itself and you can put something in your arsenal. Not a big deal. Okay, let's look at Tome of Yendal. This is probably one of the more ball-in plays I did with Tome of Yendal in all of the games, okay? So I have Tome of Yendal in Arsenal. I accidentally roll my dice all the way across his board. Kind of feel bad about that, but that's okay. So I'm going to pitch my blue, 2 floating. We're going to go ahead, consume that action point. Couldn't find the 1. Play Tome. Boom, boom. Healed 4. Wow, okay. So that's a 4 damage swing here already. So we've got 4 points of value. I have Arg Smash in my hand. So I'm going to pitch another blue. I'm going to go ahead and play Arg Smash. And this was a hybrid dash. They caught me off guard a little bit. They started boosting me in the beginning and then switched to items. I cracked my Gambler's Gloves because I'm a wild animal. And I get the 6. So I crush all 3 items. Okay, so this turn so far is heal 4. Break 3 items. That's 3 whole turns of commitment from our opponent. So we're well over 8 points of value, to be honest. This is probably in the 10 points of value already. Do another Intimidate, just because I didn't draw an attack. If I had an attack, this turn would have been lit, right? And then Claude. And I got to keep an arsenal. So we're doing 6 plus 4, 10, plus all of the destruction of items, however much you want to equivalent that to. And if I had a swing big, a CNC, or an erase face here, this turn would have been insane, right? Look at how much value this did. Nuts. Okay. So let's take another example of some of these more interesting cards I'm playing. Okay, Oasis Respite. This one's way more obvious, right? But Tunic, in the Tunic matchups, it does something like turn off a Crippling Crush for basically free. That's been dominated, right? So with just a piece of armor, a card, and Oasis, I am able to shut off an entire Crippling Crush for almost nothing, right? And then swing back a swing big. That's a lot of value. It's incredible. Okay, let's look at something else. Okay, this one's a lot more vanilla, right? But red barraging into claw, especially at this point in the game, is 21-14 against a Bravo player. I'm trying to buy time because as soon as you let Bravo keep too many cards, there's just a chance that my health lead here will just evaporate with back-to-back cripplings and dominated whatevers with pulping or with pummels, right? This guy could just absolutely blow me out of the water at any point in time. So what does this do? Is it just says give me 2 cards from your hand or take 7. Either way I win, right? It's kind of like an option select from a fighting game. But it's like I'm just saying, hey, 2-card play, you're gonna take a lot of damage here. Or you're gonna give me a turn cycle and I'm gonna find a blood rush really soon, right? It's just good. There's no other class can really do this, right? It's really good. All right, so this is a big one, right? 18-7. This guy's about to murder me with a full card hand, 4 seismic surge tokens, and a pulverize. This is one of the things that only Brute can do, right? I'm gonna pitch a blue here. I'm gonna claw.
For 3, 1 action point left.
I'm gonna have 1 floating, right? So we're gonna do 3 damage off of a blue so far. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I know I need to threaten a lot more damage. He's only at 7 life. I need to try and rip this pulverize out, right? I need to stop it from hitting me. Or I need him to take as much damage as absolutely possible to do this. And boom, CNC. Would you look at that? You can hear my opponent's reaction. So I just did 9 damage off a single blue with an on hit to destroy his pulverize from Arsenal, right? That's good. This is good, right? And I do this a lot, especially against Guardians, because it's a little bit less punishing when you roll a 1. Like, if I can ever cheat out damage with scab skins on a blue, like whether that's two cost cards, whether that's a claw and a swing big, I'll do it, right?
Yeah, no,
really, really good play. All right, so here's another thing that you guys need to keep in mind is this is turn 1. I sigiled on their turn. Right there, I pitch stacked a red Alpha Rampage next to a red Barraging Beatdown. This will come back.
It's a 4-card hand.
And it will show itself later in this matchup, and it does end up winning the game.
Oh, 9.
I also managed to put a Tome of Fiendal in my arsenal. So let's go ahead and see how this tome works out real quick. Let's speed it up. Turn the volume down a little bit here. So I block out, try and block as much of that as I can. Pick up my tunic, scab skins, doing the standard thing. Got a 6, right? So let's go to normal speed here. Pitch. I'm gonna heal. I'm already at 43 life, right? Let's keep that in mind. And then I claw, right? 1 action point remaining after that. So this turn is basically already a value, I think, of 3, 4, 5, 6.
How would you know? Because of how you play.
And then
You're signaling it.
let's go ahead and speed it up one more time.
I'm at 3. I'm at 4.
Right? Block. And then boom. Swing big. Look at how much value that is. Right? I healed. I did 11. That's over 15 points of damage off 2 cards, right? Or 15 points of value off 2 cards. Pretty incredible. Yeah. Tome is really good. Really good. All right, this is one of my favorite plays from all of my games, right? So my opponent threatened me with a rouse and a hammer. I only had 3 health left after the rouse hit me, which would mean normally I would have had to block with a card from hand. But Sigil and Arsenal against Guardians is just insane, right? I mean, it allows me to do things like bluff a pummel, get through stuff like that, like Command and Conquer Pummel. They waste an entire turn trying to kill a Sigil that I can play at instant speed. But here what it did is it caused my opponent to overextend.
Wow, okay.
They took damage on their turn to play the rouse and the hammer, assuming that I was going to have to block with cards from my hand, right? So I managed to live with 2 health. And then now you're going to see that several turns ago, I set up an E-pot on the table, and I happened to be at 3 counters on my tunic. So what does that mean? Well, it means I can play 2 red barragings from my hand, pay for an alpha rampage off of tunic and an E-pot. That is a recursion card I just had to put to the bottom of my deck because I discarded it. And now I'm coming in for alpha rampage for 17 no blocks, no cards in hand, 4 intimidates, right? And this wins the game. Okay. That's so much value, especially just for an E-pot sitting on the table that I can scab skins out at any time during the game. But yeah, even through every single piece of their equipment, the crown of seeds, paying for their shield, everything, right? Close it out. Incredible. Incredible play. The E-pot is really good, and Sigil is really good. See how it's all kind of coming together? Alright, here we are. Different game, Mr. Bill's Collectibles, ProQuest up in Seattle. Go ahead and drop a red barraging. You'll see I have an E-pot and a tunic trigger, as I always do. Another red barraging from Arsenal. Boom. Right? I'm waiting to see if there's any reactions like a channel like Frigid before I drop my blue. Just a standard Intimidate here. And then I did this wrong. I should have kept my tunic, but that's okay. I already did it, so I was committed. And then go ahead and pop my E-pot here. Boom. 3 resources floating. Swing big from Arsenal, or from hand. That's a big swing big. That's 16 damage. 1 card left in hand. All off of an E-pot, right? This card, E-pot is very good into Icelander and to Oldhim. Any slow deck that you can play, right? Really, really powerful stuff. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm really excited about the future of Rhinar and Flesh and Blood, right? I think these band announcements were really positive for the game. I think we have quite a few good matchups right now. Even if aggro goes up a little bit, Briar won't last very long. And the new set is Assassins, Rangers, which we have really good matchups into, historically. We'll see what their actual kits are going to be like. But historically, those are good matchups. You know, maybe Katsu getting more cards is going to be a pain, but hey, you know, I'm going to be positive about it for right now. I'll be at ProTour. I hope to see all of you guys. Come say hi to me. I would love to hang out. You know, I'll be going out after each one of the games, getting some drinks, you know, having a great time, hanging out with the artists. Over the next couple of weeks, I will be doing commentary over the games that I played. I'll actually start posting some videos of me playing the deck and commenting on how you know, what I'm doing between turns. And then I'm going to be doing a couple more hero introduction series videos over the next month or so. So thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate your support. Have a great day.